I will now open Town Council Work Session, Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 4 p.m. held in the council chambers at 150 East Monroe Street in Wytheville. We will need approval of the agenda, and the agenda is discussion regarding the financial year, the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. We need a motion.
So moved.
A motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? This is a roll call vote. And we'll start with Councilwoman Johnson.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Patterson, aye.
Gilman,
All right. And that passes, and now, all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Basically, what we'll cover tonight is a largely a repeat of the last work session with a major focus and entire focus on capital and one-time expenditures. We're talking about these things multiple times because there is an action item in your regular council meeting tonight relative to this. There's actually two action items in your regular meeting that will be that'll be this part of the meeting will be important to understand. Capital and one-time expenses basically are something that we must evaluate and plan for every year within the overall context of a balanced budget. For our purposes, we treat any expenditure over $5,000 with an expected life of over 5 years as a capital or one-time expenditure. So these are not repeat recurring expenditures. The purpose, my goal after going through this in the work session and then getting to the action item later in the meeting would be for the council to take action to basically to endorse the staff to include these items in your first reading of the budget in 2 weeks. So again, these will be very familiar to you. You will have all seen this presentation except for the water and sewer items. First item is the replacement of ADA steps at McWayne Pool. The current steps are exposed to chlorine and sunlight and cold and heat and are becoming dilapidated and need to be replaced. And it is also a legal requirement that we have two ADA entrances into and out of the pool. A new set of these is $6,700.
Mr. Freeman, at this
Yes,
time,
ma'am.
can we ask questions or do you want us to wait?
However you want to do it. As long as we get through it in an hour, I don't care.
That's okay. Go.
Do you have a question?
Would there be any type of grant money for those steps by chance?
Yeah, I'd have to direct that to Josh. I don't really know.
I'm not sure for ADA requirements and the legal requirements.
All right. The expedition, it has about 168,000 miles on it. It's about 20 years old, and it shows considerable rust in portions of the body and also the frame. I think a picture is worth 1,000 words here, but the request is to replace that. There was actually a larger request here to replace with another 15-passenger van and also to decommission this. I think the request was originally about $65,000. Budget and Finance Committee did take a look at this, and what we've recommended is, and we've also consulted with the department head. I don't like talking about Josh as if he's in third person, as if he's not here, but we did consult with Josh, and Parks and Rec believes they can make do with a minivan that will help serve them when they have programming that has very small groups that need to go off-site, and also would allow them some additional transportation for just their daily operations.
Is that able to pass inspection with the frame rusting?
You know, Holly, to be honest with you, sorry, Ms. Atkins, I don't know. I'm not really all that familiar with what the state inspection requirements are. I don't know if that's something they would look at or not. It's not a good scenario, I think, regardless. So I think it's well beyond its time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Artificial pitching mounds, we did talk about this a little bit extra on Tuesday morning with Budget and Finance. The request here is for a not to exceed amount of $7,500. I think Josh is working on getting some some actual quotations for this, so that you'll see in my third bullet there that what we're saying is that the budgeted figure would not exceed that amount and would be based on actual quotations. Is that,
Have you gotten any quotes?
Josh? Any
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I sent those to Elaine. I think we had, this one was the actual total amount was $7,400, give or take a little bit for shipping, and that's $7,500 amount. The other two quotes that we received, 7,600 and some change, and 81.
And I forwarded those quotes to Budget and Finance last Tuesday.
Currently, my email is not working.
Okay.
I asked for a text message in the meeting. I asked for you to send me a text message because I was not going to be with my laptop.
Okay.
And it's not
All
currently
three
working.
quotes were 7,000 something. So all three quotes were the 7,000 range.
Okay. Next item is renovations to McLean Pool. The current gutter system is 18 years old and can no longer be repaired. These systems change a lot. A lot of times they're proprietary or nearly custom to each configuration. Replacement parts are no longer available. The concrete supporting the gutter system is falling away, and there's really the only choice here is to just keep plugging away with it like it is, or just get it fixed the way it needs to be fixed. Total cost here is about $110,000. McLean Pool furniture. Here's just a couple examples of kind of the conditions down there. Much of the furniture has missing or broken straps. The umbrellas are tattered and bent up in many cases. This is basically a refurb cost, the way I understand it. So we'd just be asking for repair of these, but not total replacement of all the framing and all that stuff. So to rehab the existing furnishings, the quote is $15,500. But that would restrap 50 lounge chairs, 2 tables, 8 other chairs, and then 6 new umbrellas. So there are some new umbrellas in there. I imagine those are probably not items that can be actually repaired.
I do have a question on that.
Mhm.
You said refurbished. I just want to make sure, is it going to be the chairs that we actually have and they're going to fix those, or, okay.
So yeah, so the restrapping, if you look at this green photo, Holly, and you see that the missing straps, that is something that they can basically pull that old strap off and I guess rivet or whatever the mechanism is.
The way that works, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The way that works is they'll sandblast everything down. Any of the welds that are broken or will be repaired, it'll all be powder coated straps.
And they'll be just as safe,
Yes.
okay, as newer ones, okay.
But cheaper than buying new, I'd gather. All right, next item is replacement of the therapy pool UV system. Basically, the UV system is a sanitation system that disinfects the water without the need for chlorination, or at least less chloramines in the water, which improves air quality in the facility and also reduces the need for shocking the pool during AFRs, which are basically human releases, if you will. The cost of replacing this system is $12,000.
And you said it's broken? At the therapy
It's currently broken and cannot be repaired.
Is it closed right now with their pool?
No, we're just.
You just have to use more chemicals, which chemical costs have all gone up. So that's a challenge. Ultimately, I don't know the total payback period on providing this new unit. It's just a shame to have a unit that's supposed to be there to reduce chemical usage and not be able to use it. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. Racquetball court conversion. At the last meeting, we talked about this conversion, and Budget and Finance and staff had recommended this total request was $40,000. We had asked if they could do this in a phased approach. In order to do the power lift rig, adjustable bench, functional trainer, rubber platform, and some free weights, sound baffling, As a phase one, we would need about $28,500 to do that. And then phase two would be a future request, which would allow us to put a Smith machine and speed track equipment inside the current racquetball court. Right now, here's the good news about this is that there's very low to no demand for racquetball, but there is high demand for personal training and other group exercise courses at the facility. Current year, we budgeted $60,000 for training, and the last year-to-date figure we had through, I believe, February was that they had already generated about $75,000 in revenue, and there is demand there for more courses. So this one is one that does have a payback. I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you I know exactly what that payback period is. We just know that the demand for these is high, and the demand for what we have existing is low. Withers Park bleacher demolition, quoted price there is in the ballpark of $32,000. We will have to get an official re-quote on that. What was quoted last year, I believe, was $28,000, and then we were told in writing, but we'll still need to get an official word on that, about a 10% increase there. There was a question about whether or not this would come out of the rec center fund, and the answer is no. This would just come out of the general fund, and this would not be, even though this might be captured in the budget or captured by me or captured by the audit as a Parks and Rec expenditure, it would basically be under general properties. Every facility we have has a listing under general properties, so all the parks, all the buildings, each have their own department in the budget under general properties, and that's where this project would be, I'll say, housed.
I do have a question on that, Mr. Brennan. I know that was one of my concerns because I didn't want to see that coming out of Mr. Sheridan's, allotment account or whatever. Will it stay on paper like it is actually here in the budget report where it's supposed to be passed this evening? Will it stay in that account?
Well, right now it doesn't have an account number. I just classified it generally as Parks and Recreation because it is in a park. Mm-hmm. But like I said, every facility has a separate department called General Properties Municipal Building, General Properties Police Building, and that's where all the, like, say, heating costs, all of the HVAC, heating, all of the repairs and maintenance to buildings and facilities all have a general properties code, and we would just put this in the general properties under parks. But it generally falls under Parks and Recreation, so that's why it's categorized that way there. Does that make sense?
Well, yes and no. When I was looking at these expenses, this is a large amount in the one department, and when you look at this on paper, to me, it just looks like it's going to come out of that, and that's just a huge amount hit for, I think, them to take.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, when you see it on your first reading, it will be in the department for general properties for Withers Park. Okay, and so, but it is a park. It is a park amenity, even if, it is a park expense, and so we have to capture it for what it is.
But like when it's in here, and if we pass, or if we go over this tonight, and when I was told there's going to be a huge deficit, that's the only thing that's concerning to me. But anyway, I just want to express my concern on that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or a statement? So wherever the quote for the demolition came from, would that particular entity somehow allow us, if we wanted to use some of that wonderful rock and block and all that as a fundraiser? I mean, that's, a lot of people played ball on that field, had people there, and they might want to buy, just like buy a brick, you're going to buy a big block of this.
We can ask the question. I mean, I don't anticipate them doing what you call selective demo, where you would very meticulously go in and remove things. I think this is more of the large excavator. I don't think they'll use a wrecking ball, but for lack of a better term, it'd be more of smashing it to the ground and scooping it up.
Some dialogue out there that
okay.
That might be cool.
We can see if any of it comes apart in a way that anybody would want any pieces of it. I mean, I guess we could always explore that a little bit. You're welcome. Lighting replacement, and this is in 3 locations. The community center itself, 4th Street gym lighting, and then the McWayne Pool. The numbers on each of those photos tell you how many of those particular lights are currently out. There are 12 of this wall mount, I'll say sconce. I don't know if that's what you really call that style, but there are 12 of those out at the rec center. There's 23 of the lights there that are just under the window sills. And then 5 out of 12 of the lights in the lower left-hand corner those are the lights at the 4th Street Civic Center. Then only 4 of 8 of the lights are currently working on the exterior of McWayne Pool. Excuse me. Total cost here is, got to do my math, $36,000. Those are broken down. These are, again, these are the types of costs, again, that would go under the general properties for each of those facilities. So these wouldn't be in one single line item. They would actually likely be in 3 separate line items.
And the bulbs just cannot be replaced.
I think, Josh, I'll ask you to weigh in here. My understanding is that ballast, because of the age of all these. Now, the ones at the rec center, I'm not really certain about.
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, the way, if you were going to replace those now, you would replace the bulb and the ballast is out. What we're trying to do is be a little bit more energy efficient, go with the LED fixture, and you would have to actually remove the ballast in that. And the thing is, now you can no longer get those ballasts as they exist when they were installed.
For all of those.
That's correct.
So those 2 on the bottom are quite old. I shouldn't try to put an age to them, but certainly those are all quite old.
Okay, so for any of the lighting, we can't get any of the balances nor bulbs, right?
Any other questions about lighting? All right, court management system. This is something that allows us to assign courts and to switch the courts over. Is particularly effective or helpful when we're switching age groups, raising and lowering goals. Current unit is shown here as in maintenance mode, which basically means you cannot access the panel itself or control anything when it's in that state. My understanding is the new system, the old system is, again, something that you can't really get parts for, you can't really replace. I'm sorry, you just have to replace it.
Well, I had some time to walk around that area over time, and it seems like some of the maintenance stuff or whatever they were doing just took a long, long time.
You're talking about switching between age
I guess
groups.
that's what they were doing. I mean, it would take them, there'd be 2 or 3 to a team, and safety of it and trying to do those gadgets by hand up top. So, I mean, I'm sure that's not the way they're supposed to work.
Is that right? Patrol vehicles, this is an expense that the council has already approved, but want to make sure we included it in here just for your information. This would be for the 2 new Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles. I do believe those have been ordered at this point. The 105 would include the cost of vehicles plus the cages, lighting systems, sirens, and other appointments that are necessary to make it a full-fledged police car. Sights and lights for backup service weapons. As you all recall, last year you approved a replacement of the service weapons and the backup weapons. The PD last year only requested the light system and excuse me, the light and sight systems for their primary service weapon. And this year they've asked to add the lights and sights to their backup weapons as well. Chief Hatch tells me that this is a recoverable expense from the Department of Justice through an annual grant that they receive through the police department.
Do you know when did they sell their old guns? Do you know?
They did. They were sold to, I think a few of the officers bought them here. The rest of them were sold to the dealer that we bought the guns from, basically. Police Department flooring. This is just a small sampling. And if you look closely, we'll just start on the left. You've got 3 different shades of tile there, paneling, or excuse me, the tile in the center. You can see all the cracking and breaking pieces. That's throughout the entire building. And then this laminate flooring on the right, you can see all the wavy buckled issues there. Chief did tell me that some of that is because of some water intrusion during heavy rains that we're also going to have to reckon with. But needless to say, this is well overdue. Excuse me.
An estimate for that, is that with, I think I had mentioned about maybe checking I know about asbestos.
The $25,000 is just for the flooring replacement itself, but we will definitely want to get that tested if they want it. If they want the tile removed, you'll have to test for asbestos.
So we don't have to test for asbestos in this middle one?
Normally, well, the stuff on the right would not be asbestos. That's just like right. The stuff in the middle or the left could be. Billy, I might put you on the spot. What is the tile size that's typically asbestos? 12 by 12, less than 12 by 12?
Anything less than 12 by 12, older tiles, 9 by 9. Tiles. Standard size they changed.
So I don't know what size these are, but we'll find out and we can test it. The testing itself is not expensive. It's the removal and disposal that's where you can run into some expense. I wouldn't think it would be astronomical, but it really depends. And there's just different ideas on how to handle it. Some will recommend that you just leave it in place. It's inert as long as it's not airborne, because it's when you breathe asbestos that it becomes dangerous. Some would say that's the best thing to do is just leave it alone, go over top of it. It's harmless. Some would say remove it, but that does pose some other challenges on how we operate something that's in operation 24/7 during a demolition and removal of a hazardous material. So we'll just have to kind of weigh that out.
So do we need to wait on this one to see if it is or not? Because if it is, it couldn't be sort of more pricey?
That's a good question. I think it just depends on what our appetite is for actually removing it if it is asbestos. I think clearly the flooring is bad. It's quite bad and needs something.
I understand it's bad. I don't want to put anybody at risk if it's bad and we just do a replacement for $25,000 and say if it costs a ton to actually remove it. That's one thing I'm concerned about for myself.
Did we not discuss in our budget and finance meeting that we would be looking into?
Certainly, and I think I just repeated that we will, of course. But again, finding out if it's asbestos and then deciding what to do with it is really 2 steps. I mean, we can find out if it is. If it's not, then there's no harm in removing it, and they can still be in the building when that happens. If it is asbestos and you want it removed, we'll have to relocate them during that process. But and I don't know who to tap into here, but perhaps we can get an expert to weigh in on it. My understanding through these processes with other projects is that if it's inert as long as you don't breathe it. It's when you start digging it up is when it becomes friable, which means airborne and something you can ingest into your lungs. So it's not dangerous until it's friable.
Sometimes the people who put the floors in have the knowledge and just because they said that tell their clients whether or not to, just cover it up or not. I know that we did that with the church, and they said, you're just better off just going over it.
And leaving it alone.
Leaving it alone. Nothing's been, approached, and nothing's been, just, so that's what we did. And that was our recommendation of, I don't know if it was the people putting it in the floor or someone else that we contacted.
I think so. What I would suggest is if you think this project is worthwhile and you want to endorse it tonight, it's fine to do so. And then if we decide to remove it, I will point it out to you all in your first, second, third reading whenever we have more information about it, that this price has increased, and make sure that you all are aware of it before we take any action.
Employee safety is my first concern, and I would rather have something from a professional in writing making sure that our employees are going to be safe.
Certainly, and we'll try to make sure we get you something. I'll get you some fact sheets, and I'll reach out to HDH in Christiansburg and see if they'll provide us with some additional info. Okay, utility trailer for the police department. There was a question last time about where these materials are currently stored. There is an off-site storage location. I think you all are affectionately known as Area 51, sort of jokingly known as Area 51, where the materials that they use are the barricades, cones, all those sorts of things, tents, tables, displays, et cetera, are all stored. They have a very small trailer that they move these back and forth, so it requires multiple trips. And it also, whenever they need the trailer for anything else, they have to load, unload, load, unload, load, unload. So what they're asking for is a trailer that can be basically serve a single purpose and stay loaded with whatever they would need to make street closures and be rapidly deployed. So that's what this is all about. The gear and hose dryer, this is showing you an example of a gear and hose dryer with racks inside of it. Then also one in the center shows you with just an example that would show you how they would dry hose in it. And then on the right, of course, with gear in it. The original request was for $8,000 for a gear and hose dryer, but it is what they're exploring is whether or not the $12,000 dryer will work and whether it will require an additional, if the panel can handle the additional electrical pull. I spoke to Chief Slimp about this again today. Building maintenance has looked at the panel, requested some specs on both dryers, and we'll be getting back to them to let them know whether or not the existing panel can handle the $12,000 dryer. Beyond that, basically, what you'd be approving is an up to amount of $12,000, and if they cannot make the $12,000 dryer work, they would take a step back to the $8,000 dryer. Right now, these things are basically being air dried, hoses being dragged out in the parking lot and dried by the sun.
And we were in the public source meeting, that was the one that we had talked about. I had asked about maybe going up to the higher one.
And that would be the $12,000.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, the smaller one was $8,000. The $12,000 would give them a little more capacity to maybe reduce the number of loads they would have to do with their gear. But the reason they didn't choose that one initially is because they didn't know if they had space to do the larger dryer, and there is concern that the electrical panel itself wouldn't be able to handle the additional amperage. There's also requests from the fire and EMS to trade. If you look at that bottom line, they basically are wanting to use their donation fund, their aid to locality funds, and then trade in a small tractor and an ATV that they have very little use for to purchase a utility vehicle with a medic bed. This would be particularly useful for them during large-scale events where getting a large medic unit through a large crowd is a lot more difficult. It may also help them with some of their recovery operations, perhaps even at Crystal Springs. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory and has a revenue stream attached to it. Any questions about that? Fire and EMS pickup truck and upfit. Basically, they were, again, wanting to use their aid to localities money for this truck. They're getting a roughly $34,000 to $36,000 a year in aid to localities. They would use this year's money, next year's money, would give them about $70,000 to utilize next year. The truck itself would be $66,000. This is categorical aid that is given every year by the state and must be spent.
Mr. Brown, was there another truck that they were looking at as well?
What they were originally looking at was a 2023 model that was a little bit cheaper, but it was out there for sale. And so what they'd actually originally come to us with was a request to make a budget amendment for this year so that they could go out and get the older model, new older model truck, but that truck disappeared. So And then after the questions about the dryer and them needing to do a little more research on that, it was just decided that they weren't going to get the 2023 model, so they just basically are going to wait until July 1 so that this money can be programmed as part of our budgeting process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Linenless tables. The picture on the left actually shows what our table setup looks like at the meeting center. This is in, I believe, 3 different classrooms set up this way. The meeting center staff has estimated that they would save about $8,000 a year to go to a table that does not require linen cleaning, meaning this project would actually pay for itself in about 7 years. Homestead lighting phase 2. This would be the installation of 6 30-foot poles, including the pouring of the foundations and bases for each at the Homestead property. Since we last met, I think it's been determined that the Homestead Advisory Board would pay for this project. That's what I thought. We still will have to include it in the general fund, but what you would see is on the general fund revenue side, you'd see a transfer from the Homestead fund to the general fund. So does that make sense? We would still manage the project through the general fund, make the purchases to the general fund, but then you would see a revenue transfer from the Homestead Advisory, the Homestead fund, to the general fund to offset these costs. Does that make sense to everybody?
Weren't they already purchased though?
No, that was a big misunderstanding there. So
I'm sorry, that was on the last slide. I believe that they had, no, I'm not on this one, on the one that was shown, because that's what caught my eye, that they had already been ordered. 2 weeks ago.
it does say that right now, that the poles and lights had been ordered and the underground utilities will be run this fiscal year. Grant gave us a full rundown on that, and I apologize, don't have all the information about it. What I want to be clear about is that they did not spend money that they did not have. But what it boils down to is they didn't have enough money to do a full project. Does that make sense? But they did not spend money that was not appropriated.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
On the Homestead, I'm just trying to make notes. So the Homestead will.
They're going to pay for this.
But we'll do like a transfer.
Correct.
Okay.
What was behind that? Doing that?
We have an email.
What, asking them to pay for it? Well, just the fact that, they do have money and they do have money for capital expenditures. And so I think it's appropriate when they're able to not just ask the town to pay for everything. I mean, I don't mean to be crude about that, but I think it's appropriate for them to. Sure.
Well, but I do remember in the slide, I think it did say that they had been ordered.
And that's what it says.
Arguing that.
It still says that, Holly.
Wait a minute. Okay, but wait 1 second. But my question is then when you see that on a slide, but yet we're sitting here having to prove it, then why are we being asked? You know what I'm saying?
But this doesn't include labor. I mean, having the lights sitting there and having them poured and installed is two different things. I mean, having the lights on site is what them ordering them would get them, but that would not get them installed. Does that make sense? So they're going to pay for they're going to pay for the difference.
Right, but when Mayor Taylor asked why the change, because I had asked why were we approving it if they had already ordered it? Why was it even in the slide? Is my question. Because
they had money appropriated last year to do this.
Right, I remember that.
Right, so they went ahead and got their lighting coming. Now, do I wish they would have stopped when they knew they didn't have enough money? Yes. But that didn't happen.
Right. No, that's it. Right.
But they're going to make up the difference.
Thank you very much. So
You're welcome.
They'll be transferred. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any way that they can, as the Homestead is finishing that project, is there a way to do it this fiscal year, or do we have to wait July 1?
I really don't know. It depends on the contractor. I don't know how long it would take. And
I think Grant wanted that project done by June. So he asked last week, I said, well, it's coming from the Homestead Fund.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, I feel like that's up to them.
Be agreeable since it is coming from, the remainder of this money is coming from homestead fund, would you be agreeable to them transferring that money from the museum endowment to, I guess,
The general fund.
general fund, so that he can get this done before Papa? The lights,
Or not.
would you guys be okay with
For him to
Actually, I don't know if we need to
transfer.
make that an agenda item or what, but he did ask me.
I don't think you necessarily, that's a question for Mike, unfortunately. I don't know I think if what I have asked for is for them to send an official correspondence from the Homestead Advisory Board saying that they would like to transfer let's just call it $20,000 to the general fund for the purpose of getting this project completed. As far as I'm concerned, and Mike may tell me something different, that should be enough authorization for Mr. Stevens to move that money and for them to get on with it. And then Mike, I believe, will just address it at the year end. I'll call it the cleanup in the budget that happens every single year in every locality where you're having to kind of fix everything, if you will.
So then this can be removed from the,
Yes, if it was done this year, we could remove it. That's correct. It's a good question, Elaine.
So later when we vote during the regular session, it'd be possible for us to remove the CIP and just this year's transfer of money. I know that's a mic question.
Well, here's the thing. So if you all approve this, you still have to approve a budget. Okay, this is basically just telling the staff, yes, we want these items included in our budget for next year. Since these are sort of the unique projects, these are not just general operations. What you guys will vote on is telling me that when you come to your first reading of your budget, you want to see these projects included. If the project's going to get done, I would just take it out. You just wouldn't see it. Does that make sense? But you've authorized it for next year, and if you're okay with that, that's fine. But if it's not there, I think that should be fine too. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It'd be different if we asked you for 20 and then I slip 40 in them, which I would never do. But I'm just trying to use that as a counterpoint here. You know what I mean? I hope that's clear to everybody. If we take it out and then they can't get it done, then I'm just going to be right back in here, putting it right back in again.
Okay with that, Ms. Hunt?
I'd rather just leave it in if you're okay. Same thing here, homestead drainage.
I don't know why we just can't think just a second besides just saying yes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to comprehend. Okay. I mean, I am. I'm just trying to think.
It's all
I'm
good.
sorry. Just trying to think.
Okay, was there any other questions about the lighting then?
I don't know anymore.
No, she was just asking a question, and I think it was a legitimate question.
Right. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I just don't want to try to do something wrong. I apologize. But I'm just
No,
trying
you're
to
good.
think.
All right, homestead drainage issues. I think the picture is pretty self-explanatory here. One of the things they have been experiencing is a lot of rot on the lower portion of the log structures, just due to the inability to move water away from them. It is sort of, it is what it is. It's built in a low location that receives drainage from two different sides, and the road itself, it's just basically dead flat. So it's hard to move water away from a dead flat piece of property. But again, this is another one that's anticipated to have shared costs with the Homestead Endowment Fund. Elaine, do you recall if they were going to pay for all of that, or?
Correct.
Okay.
We would pay for that.
We would pay for that.
We would pay for that as a CIP. And the endowment fund, the rest of the lighting.
Gotcha. Okay. So strike that little asterisk there at the bottom then. Asphalt roller, the one on the left is the 1985 Ferguson. I don't know what else to say about that. The one on the right is the model they would like to purchase. It's a small roller, certainly a lot easier to move around than that apparatus, and well overdue. The cost of this roller is $32,500. In case you're wondering, and maybe you're not, this is not something we can buy with our VDOT maintenance money because it will only buy small, like hand tools. It would buy it would maybe buy you an asphalt rake or a shovel or little things like that, but it will not buy. You can't spend it on capital. This is the auto shop roof, which experiences and has for a long time lots of leaking. It's particularly bad during and after snow and ice events. What the Public Works has proposed is going to a truss style roof over top of the flat roof. There's currently no limitations on that. If you had a lot of HVAC or other equipment up on that roof, it would be limiting. But right now, there's nothing up there that would prevent them from going to a truss style roof. An example of a building here in town that just had this done maybe 3 or 4 years ago would be the Mattress by Appointment building right up here on Monroe Street. If you all are familiar with that building, it used to be a flat roof building that looked nearly identical to this one. And 3 or 4 years ago, they put a truss style roof on it. That is a quoted price. So there were, I believe they have 2 quotes on that right now. Lease buyout was our question.
Yes, I'm sorry. Will they get another one? Are we supposed to have 3 or just 2?
Under $250,000, you don't have to do any competition, but they fortunately did get at least 2. It's advisable to, but they can. You can get 3. There is no mandate to choose the lowest. It's basically lowest qualified or whoever you think will give you the best performance for the best value for the dollar. The 2019 Ford F-250 used by the Building Maintenance and Signalization Department has been under lease, I believe, for 4 or 5 years, and that will run out on November 30th. They've asked if we could go ahead and purchase that buyout. I won't put Paul on the spot, but I heard him talking about needing to buy a new truck himself. So I think for $5,500, we'd be foolish not to buy out the remainder of that lease and keep that vehicle running. My understanding is it's working just fine. So. Another utility trailer request. This would be similar to the homestead project we described. It would be included in the general fund, but there would be a transfer from the perpetual care fund to the general fund. So this would be a no net increase to the general fund itself. But this would be to transport mowing trailers to and from the cemeteries. That is not our sewer treatment plant, is it, Tammy? All right, slide colors change because these are the new slides that you all have not seen yet. We're moving now into the sewer fund, but there's really only 4 or 5 of these. One of the things we've been talking through Budget and Finance about and been talking as a staff, Tony's probably been, I don't want to put him on the spot, but probably been asking for this project for 5 years at least. The wastewater treatment plant is old and has a ton of maintenance needs, tons of needed replacements. Right now we have issues in the thickener building, secondary clarifiers, just worked on primary clarifiers. Still don't have them running. So what we're asking for is to hire a professional engineering firm who specializes in municipal water and wastewater systems to come in and evaluate the treatment plant, provide us with an engineering study. Mount Rogers Plain District Commission, I believe, has committed $20,000 of their technical assistance fund to this project. And SERCAP is the Southeast Rural Community Assistance Project, is aware of the project. I believe they were on site. Actually, was it today or was it last week? Today to look at this. We think they will view our application favorably to provide $50,000 to this project, bringing us a total of $20,000 from outside sources. And we think we can get this PR done for $80,000. So the net cost to the wastewater fund would be only $10,000 to get an $80,000 project completed. What that would do is give us a more in-depth understanding of the needs of the facility as well as the anticipated cost of those projects and the ability to program those repairs in future years. And potentially, the bigger picture here is potentially seek additional funding either through DEQ, the state, other state agencies, and perhaps even the feds. So The goal here is to build a compelling case with actual verifiable technical data to support future funding applications and see if we can get some help to make some needed overdue improvements at the wastewater treatment plant.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just from seeing the sewer treatment plant, if he's requested for so many years for help, why did it take so long to get to this point? Why was it not addressed when he started making the request?
You know, Ms. Johnson, I don't want to try to speak for others. I'd rather not. I mean,
I can ask counsel.
so, you know, Tony,
Those
I
that
don't know
have
if
been
this is
here,
something that's been you
I mean,
put
he's-
in the last couple of years, have you? But I mean, you started asking for it. But so, like you're saying, he doesn't know if it even made it into this room. So, you know, the challenges in the last few years has just been the sewer fund is limping, took a loan, which it still needs to pay back from the general fund of $500,000. Just to be honest with you, no real appetite so far to do much with sewer rates, understandably so. So, I mean, I think the good news is that we're on it now. And
I feel that anytime requests like this are made, they need to make it to budget and finance. They need to come before council because we should not wait
I agree.
and procrastinate on getting things done that are very, very important. If something were to go wrong, it could be a public health issue for our citizens.
Certainly.
And our citizens, we all sit in here because people voted for us and they have expectations of things getting done. And in my opinion, it's unacceptable that it has had to wait this long.
Yeah, I think we've put them in a pretty tight spot. And I think it's overdue. And I think the good news is that there seems to be the will to do it now. So
What we do
that's
is
a good
we say
thing.
thank you to you to bring it to us because this hasn't been this long. So.
All right, pump station 6, as you all know, is we refer to it, I think, as the Booker pump station, sometimes just colloquially. I don't know if that's an official term for it, but that's just what we call it. We do have prior year loan proceeds from last year where we completed the VML VACO financing for a variety of water and sewer projects. So we do have about $491,000 set aside for this project. Please take note up here under note where it says that the town council will consider about $46,000 in appropriations for the current fiscal year in your regular meeting tonight. So there's an agenda item in there. I believe it is 8A in your current agenda where Elaine will walk you through the need to move on with this now. I don't want to steal your thunder, but basically, if we want to complete this project and we want to do it in a timely fashion, and you all are agreeable with getting it going, we need to go ahead and have those parts on their way. And these folks want either full payment or large down payments before they'll process a purchase order, and I'll let them go into it a little bit more. Bottom line is this thing has overflowed several times in the last few years, has had there's 2 pumps in this thing. I think we've lost 3 or 4 in the last couple of years of the 2. I mean, they just keep getting put in and burn out, put in and burn out, put in and burn out. It's time. It's well overdue again. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Mr. Freeman, you said how much was set aside?
There's $491,000 that we received last year from VML VACO Finance for water and sewer improvements, and that would be almost entirely dedicated to this project. One of the items that is also under that agenda item 8A is a 4-inch high head pump. Engineering staff has done a great job of shopping this around, working with Tony, Billy, to find a vendor and an acceptable model that will meet all the needs of every pump station in town that we currently have. The Booker pump station itself, if I go back to this picture, you'll see that it's not the same model, but basically that orange trailer there is the portable pump that has been running the Booker pump station for a few months now, that'll have to remain on that site for the next 6 months, I believe, at $7,000 a month. At that high price tag for rental, it doesn't make good sense for people who need pumps like this all the time to continuously rent them. So I think Elaine will talk about that under item 8A in your regular agenda. But basically, that's about a $86,000 price for that pump. But at $7,000 a month, it doesn't take long for that thing to pay for itself. And this would operate any pump station in our system. Public Utilities is currently using an F550. I don't know the year model. An F550 service truck that's a diesel that has a lot of engine problems, a lot of suspension issues, and is in need of replacement. We would charge this to the water fund, which is doing a little bit better than the sewer fund. That is not the truck. That just is an F550 service truck. So just to be clear. There's a request to do basically start back up with a hydrant replacement program. Often when the public utility staff is out doing their flushing program, or sometimes we're alerted by perhaps even fire personnel that they occasionally encounter a fire hydrant that's not working properly, those need to be immediately taken out of service and replaced. And so the request is to put about $20,000 in the budget for when those situations occur. Obviously, if we don't have any to replace, that money would just sit there. Billy, how much, if you don't mind, how much is a single Mueller hydrant? Ballpark.
You said 27 or 2,800?
I was thinking it was higher than that.
That's the last actually development done at your language.
So that would give them the ability to do, call it 8. Well, no, it wouldn't be quite that many. About six of them.
In the past, what's the total number of hydrants that have been replaced? I know the town got new fire hydrants at one point.
I don't think that's
or were
correct.
They just painted
Yes, there you go.
from red to yellow.
Yes,
Those were
yes.
not new hydrants.
No, they were
that
just
were
painted.
put in. They were
Correct.
painted from red to yellow.
Correct. Now, I was thinking when you asked about that before that you were talking about the meters, which there was a big mass water meter changeover probably 10 years ago at this point. But no mass, no, I'd say systemic change of hydrants. They basically, much of what's out there is decades old. Now, if you get a new development, a new subdivision or something like that, it all goes in new, large projects. Food City, I think, put in a couple around their building, those types of things. But basically, this just gives them the ability to replace one whenever they encounter one that's not working properly.
Wasn't there some project that Chief Brady worked on, something about fire hydrants? I was thinking there.
Well, he wanted to get into the habit of replacing the bad ones too, and he also wanted to analyze the system and see where additional hydrants could be added. That would be, this says repair and replace, but I guess theoretically this could be repair, replace, or installing them in areas where they're in need but not necessarily already available. But he definitely. I don't want to try to quote fire standards because I don't know them well enough, but my understanding is that we can pull up to 1,000 feet of hose, but you start losing pressure. If there's any turns or anything like that, you start losing distance. It's not an optimal situation. About 500 feet is about what they want to see between them. Now, out in rural areas, 1,000 feet is probably more acceptable, but where we're in a high density, relatively high density development area, then 500 feet is about now we don't have 500 feet everywhere, but I think what he wanted to see was identifying locations where we could use or already knew we needed hydrants and start getting them put in. Now, part of the problem with just putting them in is that if you've got a hydrant and it's fed by a 1-inch line, you're not going to get much flow. If they hook a pumper to that, they're going to suck the system dry. And that's a health department no. Okay, I'm sorry. I think this is the last one, actually. Oh, there's one more. This is a big one in the water fund. It's an appropriation here would replace about 1,000 feet of bad 8-inch cast iron water line. We've had about 6 breaks, approximately 6 water breaks over the last 18 to 24 months in that red section up there. To the left or to the west on this photo is, I believe that's Golf Club Lane. And then the intersection to the far right at the end of the red line is North 30th Street. This is about 2,200 feet of water line shown here, but $250,000 will only do about half or a little less than half of that. So we just have to do what we can right now with the money that we have, and then come back in a year or two and do the rest. But cast iron has a 50-year service life. We believe this line is approaching that, and when it starts breaking, it's just inevitable that they will be out there again and again and again and again. All right. There was, at the last meeting, it was suggested that I share with you all of the requests, including those that were not recommended. So that's what this slide entails. You have carpet replacement at the visitor center. You have a chair replacement at the meeting center. The police department asked for this and then came back on their own volition and said, it's not really critical. We just thought we'd ask. So they said we could take it out, if you will, for a crime scene evidence collection van. The recreation had asked for the $65,000 for a new 15-passenger van, so that was reduced. Parks and Recreation master plan, I think we all decided could wait. And then the racquetball conversion was reduced from $40,000 to $28,500. So other than that, there was a request for replacement of sewer lines, but given the status of the sewer fund, we asked that project be removed. For now, I think once we get through the sewer I&I project, we'll have a little bit better understanding of where we need to allocate our resources, and we've got to get the sewer fund under control.
On the meeting center, the chair replacement, was there any consideration on phases going through, since we have a lot of people from different areas to come in and actually visit the center? That's very visible.
We didn't talk about phasing. I mean, I think one of their plights, I would say, is that it doesn't match the current decor. And so I would just say, I think if you phase it, then we'd have even more mismatching than we do now. I don't think that the chairs are in bad shape. I think it's more of an aesthetic request, if you will.
I mean, like if they did like the little rooms, say if they did the 1 or 2 or 3 rooms and had chairs to fit that, and keep the ones for the larger area. I just didn't know if there was like a phase that was considered at all.
We didn't talk about a phase.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last slide just shows you the remainder of the budget calendar, and I won't go into detail on that. I think we're about out. Thank you all.
Work session is adjourned.